So in this video, we're going to look at using Ethernet IP and MQTT for communications. So we're going to use node red here. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a new flow. So I'm going to click up here and add a new flow. I get flow number 6. I have a whole bunch of flows going on. So I'm going to come up here to the hamburger menu and come down to flows, and I'm going to rename this PLC 152 because the IP address of my PLC is 152. So that just kind of helps me remember that. So before we really get into that, what I want to do is just kind of remind you of the inject node. So I'm going to grab an inject node here, and I want to inject a true and a false. So I'm going to change the payload to type Boolean, which defaults to true. And then I'm just going to copy this. It's already highlighted. I'm going to copy it, Control-C, Control-V, and paste. And change that second one to a false. And then I'm going to grab a debug. And on the debug, you can name the debugs, which really helps when you come to the debug menu to see what's happening if you give them each different names. And so I'm going to just kind of name this one a Boolean 1 for right now, and maybe I'll rename it later, but and I'm going to click this node status. I really like to do this because it'll give me 32 characters of the message down below. And so I'm just going to connect these and hit deploy, and just to verify this much is working. And so I'm going to, if I hit true, I send in a true. If I hit false, I send in a false. All right, so now I'm going to, I've already got a program running on the PLC, and that program actually has 4 separate subprograms that will activate different features of the on the PLC, on the lights that are already wired up to the PLC. So we have these 4 programs. One of them's called 4Flash, one's called Count Up, one's called 4On, and one's called Railroad. So they'll activate the lights in different orders. So the Count Up will count in binary up to 15 and restart. So what I'm going to do is I want to activate that. So I'm going to type in ETH here to get to the Ethernet nodes. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab this Ether IP out. And when you look at the triangle, right, the triangle tells you that it needs some configuration. Before I go there, though, I already have the IP configured, so I'm going to click on the I button here, and you see here it shows you all the flows, but as you scroll down you get to what they call the global configuration nodes. So these nodes here that kind of have the triangle telling you it needs something else, there's going to be some stuff under this global configuration nodes. So you see here we have like the dashboard, base, group, and tab. We have an MQTT broker. I'm going to go ahead and click on this to expand it, and then double click on it and delete this so that we can recreate it later. And I'm going to do the same thing with my Ethernet IP endpoint. So I already have an endpoint, so by clicking on the I here in info and double clicking on it, I'm just going to totally delete it so I can recreate it. So now I'm going to double click on the box here, and you can see it says add new Ether IP, and I click on the pencil, and I need to put in the IP address of my PLC, which for me is 192.168.2.152. And you can name it if you want, but if you don't, it'll just put the name here. And then we have to create the tags. So the tags are just the tags that we want to communicate with in the PLC. So I already have some virtual bits set up to activate each individual function within the PLC. So I have one called for flash, and again it's a virtual bit, so it's a type Boolean, but I have to add 3 more, so I'm just going to add those 1, 2, 3, and so I'm going to add count up, which is a Boolean, and then I'm going to do a for on, which is a Boolean, and I'm going to do a railroad. Okay, so these Booleans, again, they're virtual bits. They could be actual physical wired bits too, but in this case they're virtual bits in my active program. And so I'm going to be able to select one of these and then send out a true or a false to that to activate the PLC. But I also have the counter, so I'm going to start with the count up program here, and so I have a counter, and so I'm going to add a bit to get to the counter accumulator. Now this is going to be an input so that we can watch this, and of course this is a type double int. And so then I'm going to select a tag, so this is the output, so this is going to be my count up tag. And since I didn't manually name it, it just puts the tag name right there, which is kind of convenient. And I'm going to connect my true and false to that. And then I also want to have the input of my counter. And I'm going to select my PLC. I already added it, so all I have to do is select it, and then I have to select my tag, which is going to be the accumulator tag. And then I'm going to copy my debug and change the name of it. Just so I can see the count come in after I activate it. So now if I deploy this, okay, you can see that these are online. So if these are online, that means that the tags are correct, that all the configuration is correct, and it's actually talking to the PLC and reading those tags. If it says offline or something else underneath of these here, then that means it's not working. Now I do have a 1 here, but the fact that we have the green box tells us that it's communicating with that PLC. So if I click a true, this begins counting, and so you can see it's actually counting up there. I guess I only have it counting to 4 or 3, so 0 to 3 and then resetting. But you can see the accumulator counter counting here. Now I also just want to show you the debug. So if we come over here and click on debug, you can see there's a bunch of messages here. I'm going to click on the trash can to delete those, and now we can see the counter message, and so you can see the name of the debug message there. And then if I inject a false, you'll see the Boolean false come through under bool 1. So we have the node name, I guess, is in black text there, and the payload information then is in the red, and then the blue is the actual values that have been sent. Okay. So this is how we can activate just using our inject nodes and node red, and then we can send data to the PLC, and we can receive data from the PLC using these Ethernet IP industrial protocol nodes. Okay, so now we're going to use the MQTT nodes to subscribe to a broker and then publish to a broker to activate our PLC. So I'm going to come up here to my nodes and just type in MQTT. And I have two network nodes for this. I have an input, which is a subscriber. So I'm going to take my subscriber. Alright, and so the first thing I need to do is add a MQTT broker. So I'm going to click on the pencil, and I'm going to put in the IP or the host name of my server. In this case, I'm just going to use a test server, test.mosquito.org. And notice the port number. This is the default port number for unencrypted communications, is 1883. If you want to use encrypted, it's in the 8883. So, but we're just kind of sending, some trues or falses. So we're not sending sensitive information. So we'll stick with unencrypted here, and we'll stick with the 3.11 protocol version. So I'm going to click on add. So I have my server. Now I need a topic. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this like PLC2 slash data here. Well, data's not very good. Activate. We'll call it activate. PLC activate. Okay. And so then I'm going to say done. And so I'm going to subscribe to this topic, PLC2 slash activate. And if this topic then is true, I'm going to connect that up to my count up here to activate that. And I'm going to go ahead and also send it out to my Boolean 1 so I can just see it in the debug message when it comes in also. And then to activate it, I need a true false. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these blocks. And I don't actually want the Ethernet IP, so I'm going to delete that one, but I just want the true and the false, and I'll name this one like a bool 2. So I want to send in a message. I'm going to inject a true or false, and I'm going to send it out to the broker. So this one's going to be a publish. So it's going to be the same broker and the same topic, but I'm publishing it. So normally we'd be publishing it from somewhere else, but for demonstration purposes, we're doing it right here in the same flow. So the idea here is I'm going to inject a true or false out to the broker, and then it's going to come back through this one and be sent over to the PLC. So I'll go ahead and deploy that. Alright, so now that it's deployed, you can see that these are disconnected. Okay, so I have a typo somewhere. Okay, I guess I didn't have a typo, I just didn't wait long enough. It just took a few seconds to actually establish communications. Alright, so as I started to look to see where my typo might be, I saw that it actually came out as connected here. So it just took a few extra seconds than I was expecting here. So now down here I'm going to inject the true. It'll publish it out to the broker. This one is subscribed to that same topic at the broker, and so it'll take that and pass it up here. We should see it show up here on the Boolean and also activate our counter. And so you can see the true came through, and now I can send a false. Okay, and the false came through, but it's didn't actually seem to shut off the thing, but you could see that it did come through. So if I send a true, okay, so there's the true, and it activated the counter. So I send a false, and I'm not quite sure why the false doesn't deactivate it. on there, but you can see the communications coming through the MQTT broker and being passed up here, and when it's a true, it definitely does activate it. And if I inject the false, I don't know if it wants a 0 there instead of a false or what the catch is, but you can see that the data is going through.